G'day, I'm Charlie Pryde.
And I'm Jennifer Pryde. Welcome to our YouTube channel, Pride of the Villages.
In this video, we go to Key West aboard the Key West Express. This is the second time we have utilized Key West Express, and as in our previous video on the subject, we will highlight the boat, where we stayed, where we ate, and the sites we visited. Upon completion of our last trip in 2023, we purchased 2 travel vouchers. They gave us 35% off the normal cost and 2 years to complete the travel. So at the end of May, we drove to Fort Myers Beach to board the boat. The Key West Express operates 2 large jet-powered catamarans that deliver you from Fort Myers Beach to Key West or from Marco Island to Key West. The Fort Myers to Key West route runs year-round, and the Marco Island Key West route is seasonal. Key West Express, Fort Myers Beach, has a convenient parking lot at the terminal, and they charge $17 a day to park. Boarding the boat begins at 7 a.m. and ends at 7:30 a.m. to ensure an 8 a.m. departure. With boarding passes and identification in hand, we board the Big Cat Express. The Big Cat Express is similar to the other boat in that it has 3 decks with indoor and outdoor seating, snack bar, alcohol bar, and restrooms. You are allowed to bring 2 carry-ons on board that can either be stored with the crew or kept with you. Since everybody was on board by 7:30 a.m., we departed the dock early. Arriving at the Key West Ferry dock at 100 Grinnell Street. It was an easy off-boarding and a short lift ride to our accommodations, the Marquesa Hotel. Now this hotel was a contrast to our last visit staying at the Marriott La Concha right on Duval Street. Built in a former rooming house and grocery store, the Marquesa Hotel blended in with the neighborhood, and you would not know it was a hotel except for the sign in front. The location on a prime corner of the historic district, 1 block off of Duval, combines charm and convenience. Close enough to many of the main sites, but far enough away for a quiet evening. Gingerbread porches surround 3 pools that are fringed in tropical foliage, providing some privacy and shade. Our room had great air conditioning, plenty of storage space, a rainfall shower, and a porch that overlooked one of the pools. No elevators, so we did have to navigate some stairs. I need to mention that Key West can be a very expensive place to visit, with prime hotels in the downtown area running between $200 and $400 a night. Rooms in the summer tend to be a much lower rate. After check-in, it was time for lunch, and we chose Key West Cuban coffee, which is highly rated on TripAdvisor and a short walk from the hotel. It is not a large place, but upon entry, you know you're going to get some very good Cuban cooking here. We ordered the Carnitos tacos, and they easily exceeded our expectations. It was then time to walk off our lunch and see some sights. In our 19 years living in Florida, we have been to the Keys 10 times, and specifically to Key West 6 times. So we had done most of the well-known activities, like the Hemingway House, Southernmost Point, day trip to Fort Jefferson, and a harbor sunset cruise. So our intent was to visit some sites that are not as well known and which we had not experienced before. We started with an activity that was really close to our hotel, Nancy Forrester's Secret Garden. This is a parrot rescue operation and one of the first to open in the United States. The garden is in the back of the house, and the side walkway will lead you to the entrance. Upon entering the gate, the garden asks for a $10 per adult, $5 per child admission, based on an honor system. Cash, PayPal, and Venmo are accepted. This rescue operation's specialty is macaws. If you are not familiar with macaws, they are very colorful, long-tailed parrots native to Mexico, Central America, and South America. And the wild macaws can live to be 60 years old. However, under the right conditions and captivity, they can live to be 100 years old. Thus, domesticated macaws often have to be put in their owner's will because they may outlive them, which is just one reason why macaws find a home in this garden. Nancy has been rescuing abused and orphaned parrots for 30 years. There is plenty of educational material to read, including each rescue story. Hello. 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 Nancy's assistant, Sean, was on site and answered all our questions and introduced us to one of the macaws. Yeah. So are these all rescue birds?
All of these birds were in need of a home.
Sean also offers an on-site Parrot 101 to the visiting public daily. This is a drop-in, drop-out activity. Show up when you can and leave when you need to. We spent about 45 minutes in the garden before we had to leave, which felt about right amount of time. Make sure you pay for your admission. You are supporting the birds and Nancy's work in a very good cause. Next, we were off to the Key West Cemetery. A cemetery may seem to be an odd choice for a vacation stop, but Key West is unique and intriguing, lying in the heart of the old town. The main entrance and sexton's office are at the intersection of Angela and Margaret Streets. Ensure to pick up a map at the office, which highlights the notable grave sites. The city cemetery was established in 1847 on high ground, 16 feet above sea level. Following the disastrous hurricane of October 11th, 1846, where the then beachside cemetery was unearthed due to winds and sea. This continues to be an active cemetery with about 100 interments a year. Within the fenced 19 acres of the property lies between 80,000 to 100,000 people. This cemetery echoes the island's city history and diverse heritage. Interned are early settlers, Bahamian mariners, Cuban cigar makers, Spanish-American war veterans, authors, and politicians. A portion of the cemetery is dedicated to the memory of the victims of the U.S. battleship Maine. Nearly 24 U.S. Navy sailors were buried here in 1898 after the disaster explosion of the USS Maine in Havana Harbor, an incident that precipitated the Spanish-American War. Some gravestones depict the sailors' names, and others are unknown. Another notable monument is the Martyrs of Cuba, erected in 1892 to honor those attempting to flee Cuba from Spanish rule during the 10 Years' War. On our walk to and from the cemetery, we passed families of feral chickens. Chickens were introduced to Key West by early settlers in the 1820s and later by Cuban migrants in the 1860s. Some were used for egg laying and the others for cockfighting. Today, all these chickens are protected by city ordinances. The chickens are a popular attraction for visitors, adding to the quirky and laid-back atmosphere of Key West, and you will find them throughout the town, to include their likeness on many of the souvenirs sold. Arriving back at the hotel, it was pool time. Now, we don't spend a whole lot of time lounging around pools, but these were definitely inviting. Shaded by palms and surrounded by walkways lined with beautiful orchids and wild ferns, a good time to hydrate and cool off from the walking we did. Dinner time was next door at Cafe Marquesa. This restaurant is one of the top fine dining establishments in Key West, and by far the most expensive meal we had in Key West. Well, you have to splurge at least once. After dinner, it was a walk to Mallory Square to see the sunset. Now, we have visited Mallory Square before, but it's just one of those experiences that does not get old. Street performers entertain.
Let's make this one loud. Let's make it loud. On the count of 3, let's make it. 1, 2, 3.
The sun goes down, and the night entertainment in town is endless. Nightfall brings people to outdoor restaurants, and Duval Street becomes alive and will continue into early hours of the morning. For us, it was not a late night, but an early wake-up the next morning with coffee in the lobby and breakfast next door at the Cafe Marquesa, as it was included in our room rate. Then it was off for early morning exploring, with our first stop being Fort Zachary Taylor Historic State Park, located at the southwest tip of the Key. Now, we visited this fort 15 years ago, but Jennifer suggested this walk was a good start to get her 10,000 steps in for the day. Admission to the park is $6 a vehicle, or $2.50 if entering as a pedestrian. Besides the historic fort, the park offers plenty of activities, including one of the nicest beaches on the Key for swimming, snorkeling, and playing in the sand. For us, exploring the fort was our goal. Next, it was on to the Key West Lighthouse and Keeper's Quarters Museum. Located on Whitehead Street, it is across from the Hemingway House. It is open from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and admission prices vary depending on your status. 6 miles seaward of the Florida Keys is the Florida Reef, the only living coral reef in the United States, and historically was a major shipping hazard with many wrecks occurring on it. Thus, in the 1800s, lighthouses were established to help in navigation. Most of the lighthouses were built offshore, like Sand Key, Sombrero, and American Shoal. But Key West Lighthouse was constructed in 1825 at the southernmost point of the island. That was until it was demolished during the hurricane of 1846. The lighthouse was rebuilt on its current site in 1848, and after your admission, you can climb the 88 steps to the top for fantastic views of Key West. After your 88 steps back down, ensure to visit the air-conditioned Lighthouse Keeper's Quarters as part of your admission. This museum highlights the work and living conditions of the keepers in the 1800s. Several families could live in the quarters at one time, and surprisingly, there were 3 women lighthouse keepers. Being a keeper was hard work, climbing up and down those stairs, to say nothing of having to clean the glass at the top. After the lighthouse, it was time for lunch, and we chose Ma'am's Best Food, an Israeli cuisine cafe where we had stuffed pita bread sandwiches, which were delicious. Then it was a walk to the Florida Keys Eco Discovery Center. As part of the Dr. Nancy Foster Florida Keys Environmental Complex, the Eco Discovery Center has free admission to explore its displays. Since opening in 2007, Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary's Eco Discovery Center has provided visitors and locals an opportunity to explore the sanctuary without getting their feet wet. Over the centuries, more than 2,000 ships have wrecked inside the sanctuary waters, and visitors can explore the most famous through a maritime history exhibit that features projected images of wreck sites and long-lost artifacts, including a cannon from the 1733 Spanish fleet. You can learn about coral reefs, mangrove shorelines, and restoration projects on protective seagrasses. Next door to the Eco Discovery Center is the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Samuel D. Ingham, the most decorated ship in Coast Guard history. Today, it is permanently docked in Key West. The Ingham serves as a floating museum, memorial, and event space. Visitors can explore the ship's preserved interiors, honor fallen service members, enjoy breathtaking sunset views, and even host a private event on board. The Ingham was launched in 1936 out of the Philadelphia Naval Yard. And during World War II, it conducted 31 convoys across the Atlantic and on one mission, sinking a German U-boat. Transferred to the Pacific in 1944, it participated in 13 landings, serving as the flagship for 6 of those landings, including General MacArthur's return to Corregidor. During the Vietnam War, 1968 to 1969, it earned 2 presidential citations from President Nixon. In 1980, he participated in a Mario boat lift when over 100,000 Cubans escaped to the United States. In 1985, it was America's oldest and most decorated naval vessel, receiving a letter from President Reagan honoring its 21 ribbons, 27 medals, and 14 battle stars. The ship was retired in 1988 after 52 years of service. On that date, everything was left on board except the classified records. The ship is a time capsule from that day, with all the silver, dishes, medical gear, and cigarette packs still in place. Today, the ship is a National Historic Landmark and well worth your visit. Walking back to the hotel, we stop at Kermits Key Pie on Duval Street. Now, there are many key lime pie merchants in Key West, but this is Jennifer's favorite, as they have a chocolate-dipped slice of key lime pie on a stick. In addition to the dessert, it was also nice to get into some good air conditioning, and the store has some interesting decor as well. Besides the feral chickens, Key West is also known for its invasive green iguanas. Back at the hotel pool, this guy was sitting on our fence line. But unlike the chickens, iguanas are not protected, and there are people that will remove them. Nevertheless, you are sure to see plenty around the town. For dinner, we visited Clementes Pizzeria. Close to our hotel and highly ranked on TripAdvisor, we had a great wood-fired pizza, and the service was equally good. In the morning, our first sight was the Key West Museum and Art of History. Overlooking Mallory's historic seaport, the museum is an impressive building to visitors today, as it was when it opened in 1891, as the island's custom house, post office, federal courthouse, and 7th District Lighthouse office. In this museum, you will follow the path once trod by wreckers, rum runners, politicians, and citizens of the southernmost town when it was the richest and largest city in Florida in the 19th century. Major exhibits include Key West during the Civil War, including the significance of Fort Zachary Taylor as part of the Union blockade. Then there is the exhibit on the battleship USS Maine, where we already highlighted the burial of the sailors in the Key West Cemetery, and in this building the court of inquiry into the incident was held. The court concluded that the Maine was blown up by an underwater mine, although blame could not be directly attributed to the Spanish government or the Cuban rebels. A large exhibit highlights the economic boom periods of Key West, to include wrecking, cigar making, and sponge diving. They said it couldn't be done. An overseas train to Key West. Henry Flagler, the Standard Oil tycoon, spent over $30 million of his own money to build a railroad joining mainland Florida to Key West. Flagler's Overseas to the Keys exhibition features the amazing stories behind this great American engineering feat. More than 4,000 construction workers labored under conditions unfathomable by today's standards. Pictures and stories of Flagler's arrival at the Key West station on January 22, 1912, illustrate the revolutionary moment that changed the Florida Keys. Ernest Hemingway, the larger-than-life author and fisherman that Key West honors every year with a 3-day festival and look-alike contest. His World War I uniform is on display in the museum. Also honoring Hemingway, Guy Harvey, the maritime wildlife artist, at a young age in his career accomplished a series of 59 drawings following the narrative of Ernest Hemingway's Pulitzer Prize-winning book, The Old Man and the Sea. Those drawings are on full display in the stairwell of the museum. Exiting the museum, we walked around the downtown, stopping at mile marker 0. This is the beginning of Highway 1, the Florida Keys Scenic Highway that stretches from here 110 miles to the north of Key Largo and crosses 43 unique keys. Another notable landmark is the Strand Theater building on Duval Street. Almost a century ago, this Strand Theater sat 800 people, offering Southern Floridians a look at the latest pictures of the day. Today, the Strand's front facade is now the unusual storefront of a neighborhood Walgreens. Everywhere you look, there is some historical building with a story. The Green Parrot Bar in this 1890 building was previously a grocery store and a sailor's bar called the Brown Derby. The property of this very popular Blue Heaven restaurant once hosted cockfighting, gambling, and Friday night boxing matches refereed by Ernest Hemingway. A dance hall, a bordello, and a playhouse have occupied the second floor of the building. Now, we have eaten at Blue Heaven before, and the food was great, but today our lunch was at Frida's Cuban Burger Cafe. This cafe opened in 2014 with the goal of bringing the Cuban flavors of the Frita to Key West. The Frita is a burger with its origins in 1930s Cuba, where they were considered a native street food. Frita's exclusive recipes were developed with visits to Cuba and assistance from Cuban friends. They are a mouth-watering blend of beef and pork burger seasoned with Spanish spices and topped with a special sauce, and crispy fried julienne potatoes, all sandwiched on a Cuban bun. This type of sandwich was totally new to us, and it was delicious. After lunch, we headed back to the hotel to check out of the room as our 3-day trip was coming to an end. But first, we needed to pick up carry-out dinner for the evening sailing back to Fort Myers Beach. We stopped in at the largest downtown grocery store, Fausto's Food Palace, which was established in 1926. Later in the afternoon, we headed to the ferry dock with carry-ons and dinner in hand. Check-in was at 5 p.m. and all aboard by 5:30. Once everyone was on board, we were sailing out of the harbor with Key West in the rearview mirror. On most days, there will be a magnificent sunset on the port or left side of the boat, and this evening was no exception. After the sunset, we were back at the Fort Myers Beach dock by 9:30 and quickly on our way home. Now, there are several ways to travel to Key West. It does have an airport with regular flights, and driving on the overseas highway is unique, something we have done a number of times. The Key West Express provides a third means of transportation to the island, and something that we have enjoyed twice now. Well, this wraps up the video. We hope that you have a great day, and if in Key West, look for Jennifer manning the 50 cal on the Coast Guard cutter Ingham.